Jeff, we've been talking about it since last week. We have got a very special and unique guest joining us on the phone lines as we get set to start it off on this Tuesday afternoon.
Well, it is Thursday instead of Tuesday, and as we move closer and closer to the holidays, lots of great gifts out there that you could get. And earlier in the week, we asked about, what would you get that sports fan on your list? What to get that individual if you weren't sure? And one of the popular items are always books for the readers out there, and we encourage reading on this program. So certainly, without a doubt, this next guest, which is a pleasure to have on, is coming out with a brand new book that I think will really, really entice some people. Yesterday we talked about Kirby Puckett. Today, something a little bit different.
You know what? Strike up the theme music for this individual, because when you hear this, folks, you'll have a pretty good idea of who we're getting on. Now, the book's been out for about 6 weeks. It came out November the 4th, and it's entitled In the Pit with Piper. And yes, that's right. Joining us on the phones right now, and to spend much of hour number one with us, is the one and only Rowdy Roddy Piper.
God bless you, and Merry Christmas to you. I tell you, could I please just take you two gentlemen and hold you and take you every place with me and let you introduce me? You guys are great, man. And the station's K-Rod. Are you kidding me, man? I'm home. Like Gandhi, I've gone so far to come home. Nice to be on and proud to be here, man.
I never realized it, but it's really true. We've got the hot rod on KROD. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this.
You got to be the coolest station in America, period, man. In El Paso, I have had some dandy fights in El Paso, and I also wrestled there a few times. Oh, yeah. Texas was the first place that I came to America that I remember coming. I'm coming down, and as I'm getting into Texas, the first thing I remember was there was no snow on the ground. It was December where I was living. It was up in the Arctic, and there was no snow. I've never seen that in my life. And then the first sign I see as I pull into a rest area is watch for snakes. I didn't know they were talking about wrestling promoters. I'm scared to death of snakes. And those are the first two things that I remember coming to Texas. And I had a ball there with Fritz Von Erich and Kerry and all them boys, man. So I just want you to know you got a great town.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, a very rich tradition of professional wrestling in the state of Texas. El Paso's seen quite its share of matches. And, actually, we've got a couple of homegrown stars now. The Guerreros, Eddie, Chavo, from here in El Paso.
It's unbelievable because I'll tell you, I don't know. What do you guys want to talk about first? Because I know a whole bunch about the Guerreros.
Well, first off, what I want to tell you is it's really too bad that on the tour stop, when you had a chance to visit most of the country, I know you hit Albuquerque, but we saw the Albuquerque stop, we saw Vegas, but unable to hit El Paso. And I'll tell you what, you would have had an unbelievable reception over here.
Well, maybe I need to do one more, because there was some other folks. It's funny. I go over now 4 generations, and it was so cool because there'd be like a granddad and a dad and a son, and they would all come up and they'd tell me, like, the granddad used to watch me when I was, etc. And it was wonderful to see the fans that way because we've come so far. I've been such a jerk. Like my wife says, Rod. Roderick, she calls me. She's 4'11.5", 100 pounds. She's a poisonous dwarf. Been married to her 23 years. I don't know what it is. I got a barn full. I'm looking at. I got an arena full of horses. I hate horses. Okay. What was I telling you about? What's this thing? I was going someplace with this. Where was it?
You were actually. I believe we were talking about taking another tour because of how popular it's been.
And I have no idea how I got to my wife, but the people were so kind. I know why. Because my wife says when I want to, I'm the best jerk in the world. She uses another word. And these people, yourselves, I've been to like the Opie of wrestling, and they've seen me go through my ego trips and my downs and knock down and get up. And so over 35 years and 7,000 fights, it's kind of like, I don't know. I know everybody. I don't have one place that I ever called home. until I got married and with my wife. So it's very cool, man.
Well, it's a great story, and yours is a great story. Now, I got to tell you right off the bat, Roddy, the book, when we talked about getting you on here a couple of weeks ago,
yes.
we had asked for one. I haven't received it yet, so
I have not.
So, and not having a chance to read it, I don't want to really, it's hard. We've read reviews. I have a good idea of what it's about. But on the flip side, it's always tough doing these without the book. But then again,
that's very unprofessional on my team's part.
That's
and,
okay. That's okay.
I'll take care of that one for you for sure.
Let's put it this way: you're the kind of guy that I'm not going to. It doesn't matter, book, no book. We're keeping you on, and we appreciate it.
God bless you. Well, you know what? We'll try to give them the best we can. Then, if you haven't had that. Tell me, where do you want to start?
Well, let's put it this way. I was watching some videos, and almost 20 years ago, I guess about 20 years ago, Rowdy Roddy Piper and your name and your character grew to unbelievable proportions and then the World Wrestling Federation. And I guess the amazing thing to me is you've seen it from both ends. You've seen it from being the bad guy that everybody came to hate and boo to becoming a fan favorite and somebody that the fans just grew to love. And a lot of the times, professional wrestlers, they might not always get a chance to be the good guy, the bad guy, but be such a popular individual with both characters, and you portrayed them both.
Well, that's very kind of you. I very much thank you for that. I think that, the very first wrestling match, pro wrestling match I was in was the very first one I ever saw. And I came at professional wrestling at a little different angle than most folks. I was just living in a youth hostel at the time, and I was a 167 amateur champion. Mm-hmm. And this cop was a professional referee, and he's also my amateur coach. I'm at home. Sorry, guys. We ignore them. Sorry. I'm at home with you, too. So, all right, this is exactly how it happened. I'll pick it up. So I didn't know what to do, and I was asking my friends, and I got to see one, and okay, and so my pipe band were so happy that I was doing something legal. They said, hey, we'll play you into the ring. Now, you got to remember, this is 35 years ago where you could have heard a pin drop. There was nothing. And all of a sudden, the guy that didn't show up, he was going to face a guy named Larry Henning. Now, Larry Henning is about 320 pounds. He's got no neck. He's just got thunderbolts coming out of his ears. And he just lost the World's Heavyweight Championship, and he's not a happy camper. So, okay, you got to picture this. Here I come. So, preface it with, I swiped a basket from the Marlboro Hotel because I wanted to put roses in it and throw it to the crowd. Now, I'm in the kilt, same kilt that I played with in the band. I came fifth in the world playing the bagpipes. So I picked dandelions and put them in there because I didn't have roses. So now, okay, Larry Henning's in the ring. And ladies and gentlemen, and all of a sudden this pipe band comes, and people are looking and like they're applauding because bagpipes and boom, and there's some skinny little kid. So isn't that nice? I thought, dandelions, and Larry Henning is looking, and they're kind of clapping for me, and Larry Henning's being upstaged. So, man, I was a tough guy. I know I'm tough. And I got in that ring, and I got, I think, the first world record I got in professional wrestling, the shortest match in the history of the Winnipeg Arena. This guy, he got a hold of me. He hit me so hard. I went through the ropes, and I would have gone on the concrete, but I'm sure out of the kindness of his heart, he grabbed me by the hair, ripped me back in the ring, boom, 1, 2, 3, 10 seconds, it was over, man. So that means I lasted 7. And as I was coming down, the announcers didn't know who I was. So he just heard my first name was Roddy. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, here comes Roddy the Piper. And the just got dropped, and that's exactly how I started pro wrestling.
That's an unbelievable story.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of witnesses. And I was 15 years old then. And after that, I just finished it. I was in the dressing room. My nose was broke. My pipe band took a hard left. They were out of there. And so now they just see some kid with a skirt. So bottom, my nose broken, and these penny loafers come up. And that time, that's the year that was. And I thought the promoter was going to duke me out of my 2 bits. He says, kid, you did great. How'd you like to go to Kansas City? I looked at him. I said, is Larry Henning going to be there? No, we won't overmatch you. And they put me in a car and snuck me over the border that night, and I've never stopped. And That's exactly, my whole life has been an accident, guys. You know, so the bottom line of the book is, if I can make it, anybody can, man. Should be hope, Christmas hope for all of you.
Rowdy Roddy Piper joining us here on Sports Talk as we continue. And, 15 years old, you're a champion bagpipe player. What was it about, as an amateur even, what was it about professional wrestling that appealed to you and gave you the hook that made you decide, hey, I want to do this?
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting question. And I must say that the book is the autobiography of Roddy Piper, and I start the book. Roddy Piper was born in 1969. Because I left home when I was 13, and I started fighting pro when I was 15. So to answer your question is, I didn't have a real good direction at that time, and all of a sudden, you know what happened was, this was the AWA, and I don't know if you guys remember Superstar Billy Graham,
Sure.
Dusty Rhodes.
Sure.
Well, those guys were all there, and I became like the guy they would squash. While they were posing, I was the guy they were standing on. And what happened was, it gave me all of a sudden an instant security, because going from nothing to all of a sudden like 100 fathers so cool in their own way, because the closest guy to me would be at that time would be like 27. It's not like it is now. Maybe 25. There was nobody like me that young. And they kind of, after, I tell you in the book, in the Pit with Piper, they played a lot of bad tricks on me. One time, Madison Square Garden, I was this boy wonder supposed to be flying in. I was the light heavyweight champion of the world flying in from L.A., and everybody had been talking about me. This is a little bit of my career. And Freddie Blassie, I'm in the ring with my bagpipes. I used to play him, and Madison Square Garden, first time, everybody's watching. I shut 25,000 New York people up, right? They come there to scream, shut up, shut up. Finally, out of boredom, they shut up. I go to play my bagpipes. Nothing comes out. Nothing. Everybody's looking. Finally, they just they were booing, not like booing me. They're like, get the amateur out of here. And bottom line is, Freddie Blassie stuffed my bagpipes with 6 feet of toilet paper. And when I came there, they said, hey, man, how you doing? I was scared. I said, how you doing? They said, hey, we're glad to see you, but, we don't want you. You're too good. We've been watching. And then they laughed. I thought, what nice guys. They weren't kidding. They didn't want me there. And boom. And I was out, and they, don't call us, we'll call you. And it took me, 10 years to get back there.
Roddy, does it blow you away when you look at professional wrestling now and you see just how much things have changed over the years and how it's evolved?
I'll tell you what blows me away is the way it happened. But what has evolved what it has evolved into, I'm pretty angry, and I'm fairly ashamed, and I foresee that I've talked to Vince, and Vince has talked to me about coming back in there. I'm sorry, I don't do that for a living. This sports entertainment, I guess, they say, I've said this before, and they said, well, wait a second, you're the guy that's invented Piper's Pit, and isn't that? Yes, but I understand the entertainment, but the entertainment, once you get in the ring, I'll tell you, if you guys want me to tell you in 30 seconds or less, I'll tell you what the magic of wrestling is. And this is why the WWE and all that's all dying. Is a promoter used to take a look at a guy like Ric Flair. Ric Flair was the greatest of all time, man. He outranks me 1,000,000 to 1. And Ric Flair, the promoter says, I want you to get to Z, or Z. And Ric Flair, he's a ring general. He's got his way to get there. And he knows how it. And then a promoter, they could take a look at me and say, hey, I want you to get to Z. And I'm a ring general, and I know my way's right. And so then this promoter puts Ric Flair and I in the ring together, and from A to A to Y is the magic of professional wrestling, because you've got two guys in there getting to a common denominator, but both have a different way of getting there. And that's the artistry and the magic. Like somebody say to me, hey, listen, when we go out there, we're going, are you ribbing me, man? I got a grade 8 education. You expect me to remember that? I'm just going to go out there and wrestle. Mm-hmm. That's the magic. And what's happening now is not only is it distasteful for the children, but it's turned into a joke. And I got a lot of broken bones, and also at one time we had the highest suicide rate of any sport. And in the field with I'm sorry, gentlemen, I'm retired a little bit. Okay. In the field with Piper, there's a chapter called The Sickness. I didn't know how else to identify it. And, I stood on the 8-story ledge with Kerry Von Erich about a month before he shot himself. I don't know why. I'm wearing a frat T-shirt right now. On the back are 10 frat brothers, and we're building a hospital. And the equation, for just to put it simply, to try to make everybody understand, is the amount of sickness in the wrestler is directly proportional to the amount of manipulation from the promoter. And they know how to kill you, and they do. And there's straight-out murder I got that people are well aware of, and there's other ways they can do it. So I'm pretty ashamed of where it's gone, where McMahon Jr. has gone. He's as sick as they get now. I used to be, don't get me wrong, I got black wings, but that's what it is. I had the state of affairs. They said get the F out. Yeah, okay, get the F out, but put the W back in for wrestling, guys.
Yeah. Rowdy Roddy Piper back with us as well. His new book from Penguin Putnam Books is out and available at local bookstores here in town, Barnes & Noble. It's called In the Pit with Piper. However, if you would like to get yourself a personalized and autographed copy, especially since it's the holiday season, you can go online at inthepitwithpiper, all one word, .com, or you can visit Hot Rod's personal website, and that's rowdyroddypiper.com for all the great items that they've got. And I saw I've seen the sites. I've been doing some research on you, and it's fascinating. I mean, first off, hey, this is now we're in the new millennium here, Hot Rod. So these websites, this is the future, man. This is the way to go.
It's very much. I'm looking at it. And I'm working with a lot of young people, and it must have been like our folks getting TV. Remember when Elvis, they wouldn't let him shoot below the hips or something because Elvis, and they just didn't understand. And it's like, but you know what, folks? The trees are safe because we're not going to need paper anymore. Time magazine will come up on the internet. The scope of it will be tremendous, and it may even, done properly, bring a little peace to the world because we can all talk to one another. Doing RowdyRoddyPiper.com, I came up with this idea of Piper Vision, and it's for the people by the people. And it's just there, free to watch. Stuff I just shoot and just put up. That you can't see any other place. I got a ghost tape up there. It's the very first industry tape ever made. It was never meant to be seen on TV. And the reason I made it was for a guy named Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff at the time with the WCW was going on the tubes. And I made it, and I sent it to them, said, hey, I'm telling you, this will save you territory. And they just wouldn't recognize it. And so I put it on, let the fans, let them see some old matches and just have some fun with it.
Now, have you put up, of course, the one thing everybody always tells me when they think about you is they always want to know if the scene from about, I guess it was 83 or 84, when you hit Jimmy Snuka over the head with a coconut during Piper's Pit, one of the all-time greats. And if you really think about it, the Piper's Pit angle was one of the first ever that I could ever remember where a professional wrestler really took that behind-the-scenes talk show-like set together, and you were really one of the first to revolutionize that. But I don't know. First off, I don't know how you talked him into it. I don't know how you pulled that one off because that was unbelievable to watch.
I tell you, sir. I'm such a simpleton kind of guy. I was in New York. Vince McMahon Sr. hired me, and the world was supposed to be taken over in '82 out of Atlanta with a guy named Barnett, but a guy named in Chicago, doesn't matter, boom, cut him off. And so they got together and they called in, and they called like all the rebels, the guys that would work against anybody. And so all of a sudden we had this room full, and I'm doing interviews with like Orndorff on one side and the guy named David Schultz on the other, and there's 2 minutes and 54 seconds. Everybody's cutting everybody's throat. One time they crossed shoulders on me, and I'm behind them, and they took up everything but 5 seconds. And so I had one hand on one shoulder and one hand on the other shoulder, and I jumped over, and I over top of them, and boom, I went, Roddy Piper, legend killer. And I thought, wait a second. I thought to myself, if they're going to pay to see me wrestle, why wrestle for free? I'm in a bar in St. Louis. I said to Vince McMahon Jr., I tell you what, you give me a bow tie and a mic stand in 5 weeks, I don't get the job done, I'm out of here, I said. Exactly how I said it. I got to the TV, and there was a thing the background that you well know, Piper's Pit, and I had no idea what to do, me and my big mouth, and so like one of the first guys was a guy named Frankie Williams, and this gentleman, like it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do here? So I didn't know. They just said, well, interview Frankie. Frankie Williams, what has he done? And geez, I thought, he's never won a match. Ooh, wait a second. Okay. Well, hi, Frankie. I said, so, first of all, where are you from? Last thing I expected, where are you from? I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Okay, Frank. That via Puerto Rico, I guess. And he was a freckled guy. Nice guy. And so I said, Frankie, I've been watching your career. I said, not very long, but I've been watching it. And I noticed that you wrestle, but you're really bad. You've never won a match. Whoa. He looked at me and this glare, and he used to get really, and this is one of the first ones all the wrestlers are watching, and he says, I may not have won, every time I go in there, I give 110%. I said, yeah, but you're lousy. Why don't you become a shoe salesman or something? These guys now fuming, okay? Now I can see the cameraman's like, by this time he gave me like a 30-second, and boom, and so, all right, so I just tag him and push him like through the curtain. I figure that's going to be it. Frankie decides I'm going to be his first win. He comes back out of the curtain, and you can see it, man. I drilled him 3 times, and he came out again, and I drilled him, boom, and I was getting like 5 seconds, and I just looked at the remote camera, and I just said, every time you think you got all the answers, I change the questions. And then went back, and Frankie was really mad. And so it just kind of, that was the atmosphere back then. And so guys, they hated it, And finally, guys, it got where guys that were also very good on the microphone, they'd kind of plan. I'd be doing like 4 in a row. I wouldn't know who the guests, but they'd plan. And I got real good at, all of a sudden they'd be giving you pot shots. They planned one for a week because they knew they were on. And that was the spark of it. There was no, believe me, I wish there was a script. Because one time I said to Andre, big man, I had some gum on my mouth, and I said, but I put the gum on the microphone. I said, teeny weeny little brain. And next thing I knew, I'm 8 feet up in the air. It wasn't all a ball,
Roddy, when you talk about when you wrestle, you're wrestling for free in bars, and you try to get that tryout, as you just mentioned, with the WWF back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
At what point in the locker room, at what point did you say to yourself in the business that this is getting to be a lot of money and there's going to be a lot of backstabbing involved? And at what point did you realize this and you realized that, maybe I might not be around too much longer because of this?
Boy, that's a really good question, man. Very good. Let's see. About 1979-80, a gentleman named Ric Flair, and I'd come in, but Flair had really been doing well. He'd been in Carolinas for a while, and he had that place on fire, and I came to Atlanta, and it was national television by a cable out of TBS, and it caught on, and that's about when everybody started, and I told you, that's the first time they're going to take over the world, and we could feel all of a sudden a surge of interest in wrestling, and because of the houses, all of a sudden I was working in the Carolinas, I was working in Atlanta, I was doing televisions there, I was wrestling in Canada, and I really got on a roll. So I would be doing I do at least a wrestling match every night, 2 on the weekends. Every Saturday I'd do 3. I'd be flown on a private plane out of wherever I was into Atlanta, do the TV, boom, to a matinee kind of thing, and do it for a fight in the afternoon, and then do another one at night. And it never stopped. There was never ever a break. So right there, that huge build. But when Dave Wolf approached me and with Cyndi Lauper, I want to make sure I'm addressing the right question here. You're asking when did I feel that it was really backstabbing really started?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just right there. So right there we could feel it, and about that time, Senior called me and all these other guys, and when we were all there, that interview like I was telling you about on the shoulders, that's where, because I'll tell you what they did is they called I called Roddy Piper. Oh, listen, we were seeing you. We love you. Listen, you're the chosen one. Okay, hang up. Hey, Paul Orndorff, we've seen you. We love you. You're the chosen one. Hang up. Schultz, and we all got there thinking we're the chosen ones. Not knowing that we're chosen for what? For the Lions. And so, right there, when all of a sudden about the first, right in that Schnucka with the coconut era, that's when it became real. And it was literally life or death situations all the time. And it got really ugly and really crazy. And this sickness that I refer to, I was full-blown. There's nothing a guy wouldn't... But it's not a death wish. It's not a life wish. It's not an ego. It's not a drive. You just get into a place where you're just going, and you're pretty tunnel visioned, and you just get there any way you can. If the law says that you're supposed to stay on the right side of the white line going down the road, and there's no cars coming, why not drive in the middle in case I get a blowout? I got which way to... Well, you kind of get that mentality, and you do everything, and before you know it, you become so rhino-hide and so rough. If you're a dad, you don't make a very good dad. You need a license to fish, a license to hunt, but any jerk can have a kid, but it takes a man to be a father. That's when I found out how sick I was, and it wasn't for my beautiful wife and my 4 children, I would have been dead then, along with a lot of my friends. Or if it wasn't for wrestling when I was 15, I'm sure I would have been dead by the time I was 16. So that's kind of how that went.
Rowdy Roddy Piper joining us on Sports Talk. The name of the book, again, In the Pit with Piper. You can go to the website, inthepitwithpiper.com, for the personalized and autographed copy. Now, kind of continuing on what Jeff was just talking about for a second, Hot Rod,
sure.
in the mid-'80s, your feuds with Hulk Hogan were probably some of the biggest that professional wrestling on a nationwide level had ever really seen, especially with WrestleMania, the first ever one in the mid-'80s, and then,
sure.
The one-on-one matches following that.
Sure.
You talk about how promoters have done so much to destroy the sport. Did it ever get to the point, and I bring up Hogan because were wrestlers like him and others also lobbying with the promoters and trying to backstab other wrestlers?
You see, there's 2 types of wrestlers. There's wrestlers that are allied with promoters, and then there's renegades. And I don't mean to use that renegade word as like a James Dean kind of wild word, because that's the last thing it is. Mm-hmm. But I was trained by the old school, and they trained you not only physically but emotionally, also to package yourself in such a way that you're always an island unto yourself. Otherwise, these promoters, the way they manipulate, the only thing they cannot have a counter for is somebody that doesn't need them. So that's the way I was trained. And like to go over to a promoter's house, not a chance. Or here's just an inside one. These kids that you have a match and you may come back and they're all excited, and the promoter comes up and they're really happy, and Vince McMahon says, "Hey, we had a good match." That's like kindergarten 101 mistake. First of all, you had a good match, otherwise you shouldn't be in there. I'm doing it for a living. So, number 1, of course it's a good match. Number 2, when you get back to the dressing room, I like to shower and go home. And 3, I don't want to talk to the promoter, because if the promoter says to me, "Hey, good match," and gives me a compliment, in his mind, he's going to pay me less. If I get out of there and don't let the promoter see me ever, boom, boom, finally the promoter becomes a fan of mine. And then when it comes time for a payday, I turn around and say, "Excuse me, what's your problem? I filled the arena. Where's your money?" And that's the premise I come from. Where Hogan comes from is Hogan, first of all, Hogan is a great family man. He's a great father. He has got a huge heart for kids. So now that's the kind of man he is. In the ring, as a businessman, he's a cutthroat, out for himself, as is Roddy Piper. However, he aligns himself with allies such as Vince McMahon, and like he'd do a promo about my kilt and the dress and stuff, and I'd come back with something like, he puts oil on the ball. Don't put any oil in the bald spot of your head because the ring lights blind me. Vince McMahon goes, "Cut, cut." What do you mean cut? that was, and I've never had a promo cut before. You can't say that about Hogan. Watch me. Just turn the camera back on. I'll say it again. So he was being cottonballed, but he couldn't get over Jimmy Snuka. Snuka was so they killed Jimmy off, and that got a lot of emotion into it because Jimmy Snuka was a great man that would easily be taken advantage of because of his wonderful heart. And so there was a lot of animosity between Hogan and I, and we were just happened to be trained exactly opposite. And, if Hogan didn't have a championship belt, he couldn't stay over, because he has no place to go. He needs to be a champion. Me, I don't need a belt. I fight for money, and it's my job to get in there and fill the arena. After my 24th or 28th belt or something, it's a piece of tin, and besides that, when you go through the airport, it beeps until you take it out and show it to everybody and embarrass you. So that's what that is, man.
Well, as you
long-winded for you, I can short them up.
No, not at all. Matter of fact, I'm enjoying it, and I hope you stay that way. Don't change anything, especially since we've got a little more than 10 minutes. I've got to take another break, but Roddy, when we come back, let's talk about Flair a little bit more. Let's talk about friendships that you make in and out of the ring and how important that can be to you as well.
I'd love to.
Roddy, I saw it last night, the Thanksgiving that while you were on the bus and on the book tour, you had a chance to drop in on Ric Flair in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the thing that was so interesting to watch that was it's real. And when you watch wrestling, most of it's not real. And you don't see people outside the ring. You don't see emotions and how people really react when they're not in that kind of a setting. And just seeing the two of you embrace and seeing what he has meant to you and what I believe you've meant to him as well was really kind of nice because it totally puts a different spin on this thing,
Thank you very much. I tell you, the truth is when I got into Charlotte 2 days before that, I saw him, and I had a radio show to do, and the first thing I did was, a television show, the first thing I did was say, listen, if Ric Flair comes any place close to this bookstore, I'm not going, because I'm on my 8th liver with this guy, all right? 99 kamikazes, What do you think Pipes, he used to call me the John Wesley Harding of wrestling, and that would mean he'd pit me against guys, and I didn't know that he had bartender set up and he was drinking water. I was drinking mine. I always ended up in jail. But he also, Ric Flair, probably the greatest of all times, I think. When we first met each other, he had a little animosity. There was between us a tad for a little while, but, Ric Flair has blonde hair, I don't. I play the bagpipes, he doesn't. He's got a humongous schnoz. I'm a good-looking guy. So we really don't. We really aren't as packaged people. We're not competitors in the same market. We're very, as we spoke before, yin and yang. And so we got to know each other. And when the last time I was blackballed, my first kid too, Flair would. Say, hey, Pipes, and it almost got me killed in Santo Domingo. But we go to countries like Santo Domingo, and, we had a lot of fun together. And also, being together so much. Like, it was one time in Santo Domingo, bottom line is it's martial law in that country, and the whole country turned on us. And we're in a concrete dressing room, and they're throwing concrete bricks through the windows. And huddled in a corner, and I'm hot because, Flair is the one. He told me to pull the guy's leg. I pulled the guy's leg. The place erupted. And we're down there, and the concrete's flying, and Rick looks at me and says, Don Perignon, anyone? I'm going to kill you, Flair. And it's literally life and death situation. When I got stabbed in Raleigh, North Carolina, he was there. And as we've come up... and also we fought each other a lot of times in the ring. And Ric Flair, from the old school, I don't know what folks think, but it's rough in there. And when you get on that level, as Mr. Flair is, he's hitting hard, and you're hitting hard back to survive. And he knows what he's doing, and you better know what you're doing. So after you've been in a ring like that, where if I may use this example quickly, is, sir, if I pick you up over my head, if you let me, pick you up over my head, once I got you up, you're mine. And it's just a matter of, If I'm taking you to the left, you may think you're going the right way. It's just a matter of me at the last second, moving your head 3 inches, boom, and you're that. That's it for you. So, there's a certain amount of, I mean, you're literally putting your life in my hands. Now, I'm going to say to you, hey, listen, if I don't have you, I ain't going. Or if it's going wrong, something's going wrong, I'll get underneath you and I'll take the shot before I will you, and you better do it for me too. Yeah. That kind of thing. After a long period of time, I don't know quite how to explain that kind of a bond. So, but I was scared when I went to see him, and I finally went up and not scared. I don't know what the words were, but in any case, I went up and man, I saw him. And his eyes lit up, and I don't know, brother, how do you explain, in such an odd way to make a living, how many guys are still around that actually have been successful and independent from just wrestling? And was there like 5, 7 of us, So it's very hard to make people understand us, and in any case, it was very real. Yeah, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the guy. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, sir.
Roddy, in your mind, when the World Wrestling Federation and Vince McMahon bought out Ted Turner and WCW, was that the start of the beginning of the end for professional wrestling?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was so sloppy. The whole thing, without being critical of any one person, it was just a matter of a bunch of amateurs that just didn't have a clue what they're doing. And that, they lucked out. It's like, I remember the first time I sold out a building. I'm out talking to Abby, and this old timer comes up to me, looks at me, and says, "Hey, kid, one game don't make a season." Oh, okay, yes, sir. I don't know. I got lost here. Can't tell me.
No, we're talking about the world. I guess Vince McMahon buying out Ted Turner.
Yes, because he's got a monopoly now, and their idea. I talked to him. Vince, you're wrong, man. We talked about that. A to Y, and he's just so incensed with it. To do what he does to his family. I mean, come on. Let Rikishi sit on your daughter's face. I'd take a street sweeper to the whole damn town. And then I go, whoa. Okay, so let me get this right. You're pulling your bar. Have I told you this one? What does Vince McMahon kiss my bum club or something like that? Have I told you this?
No.
No, I'm watching TV and he's on, and I got the poor guy down there, and he's pulling the back of his pants down on TV. He's got Vince McMahon kiss my bum club, and so he's there and he starts flexing his bum cheeks and he says, "Look, my ass does tricks." I thought to myself, well, I've known that for 30 years, Vince. You, your father, your grandfather is well known, But what you're doing this, and you got your son slapping your wife. You've got a Samoan in a thong sitting on your daughter's face. You got your pants down. Hey, Vince, hang on. If I was starving, my family was starving. There's nothing I wouldn't do to feed them except sacrifice them. But then I go, you're a billionaire. Hang on. Why are you doing this to your family? You see how sick that is? Imagine if that's the respect he has for his own family. Imagine what he thinks of me and what he'd do to me. So in the beginning, with like War to Settle the Score, which led into WrestleMania, I wouldn't take a dive for Hogan. I wouldn't take a dive for Mr. T. And I got this reputation. And so now him being all controlling, yes. As soon as I saw that, I knew.
Roddy, we've got about 60 seconds time for one last question. And, Jeff, you wanted to talk about what Roddy's doing up in Vermont.
That's right, and Hot Rod's doing something great with the Day Springs Healing Center. That's 44 acres of land up in Vermont, and what it will do is for any boxers or wrestlers that are in need of not only the medical but the mental health, you have the Day Springs Healing Center there to help them out.
Thank you so much, sir, for saying that. The man, you just a few seconds, the wonderful man's name is Father Jason Sanderson. He won $66 million in the Powerball, the highest winner in American history, I think. And he just donated this off a speech I gave at the Cauliflower Alley Club. And God bless him. We got a place to save my brothers. And, gentlemen, these all young guys got to understand, if it wasn't for you folks, we'd be nothing. they shun the press now because they got all this TV and stuff. I know where my bread's buttered, and I thank you so much for having me on the air. And Merry Christmas to you and your family. And what is it? May God bless us, and may God bless those that love us. And if He can't bless them, and may He turn their hearts. And if He can't turn their hearts, may He turn their ankles so we recognize them by their limp.
Hey, Roddy, listen, it's been a very quick hour. We'll do it again down the road. I promise you that. But